What's up, loved ones? Welcome back to my channel. I am so excited because we are talking about the big one today. That's right. Money, 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 money. Hey, money. We are talking about money today. Y'all have been asking me, how am I able to afford my lifestyle? How am I able to live independently with a disability? And the reason y'all are asking me that is because there is an assumption that I'm doing all of what I'm doing today while being on SSI. And the truth is, I'm not. I have not been on SSI since about 2014, 2015. So this video is actually going to be more about my journey on how I went from being on SSI, getting off of it, and being able to maintain staying off of it ever since, okay? Now, before I get into all the goods, you know what I'm gonna need you to do though, right? That's right. I'm gonna need you to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel, okay? Because every week I'm going to be dropping game and I don't want y'all to miss it. Now, if you have no idea who I am, hello, I'm Lolo. I'm an actor, speaker, author, and content creator dedicated to sharing the resources to young adults with disabilities who are seeking independence and self-empowerment, because I am living my best life right now, and I know you can too. Now, I have to give a disclaimer before we start about this video being very tailored and specific to my experience. I understand that not everybody lives in California or Los Angeles at that. I understand that my disability is very different to many other people's lives with disabilities. However, I am sharing my story because I do think that there is lessons that I've learned from having gone through it that I know you will be able to take for yourself. And I want this to be a video where you can take whatever applies to you and be able to make it all your own. So we have to start from the beginning. So the year is 2012, 2013, and I am fresh out of college, living on my own. I'm on SSI, and the extra money that I'm making is from freelance video editing, because at that time, there was no such thing as making a life for yourself on the internet. So I was editing videos for friends who had music videos, and a friend worked at a university and he needed me to edit little video vignettes that you would get when you're a new student going through orientation, all of these random little jobs that I was doing. But being freelance and on SSI was not enough. And there was no world where it ever could be enough. And I just had to accept I needed to find a way to get a real job. Now, I knew the reality that I was facing, because to get a job as a wheelchair user already eliminates so many job opportunities that way. So I knew I had to find something that worked with me based on the skill sets that I had. Then took me about a whole year to find a job. This job technically started as a paid internship first. So the paid internship was great, but again, it was more money than freelancing, but still not enough to really change my life yet. So I stayed on SSI during that internship. It wasn't until that internship turned into a full-time position at this company before I realized, okay, it's okay now, Lauren, you can get off of SSI. And mind you, I stayed doing both probably for the first few months because I wanted to make sure that this job was a steady job. And this job had full, good healthcare benefits. I was getting paid more money than I've ever been paid in my life. And because this company was building a brand new streaming service at the time, I knew that I would be able to hold this position for some years. So that was the initial way that I was able to get off of it. I just had to get a job. And again, by this time, it was 2014, 2015 when this all happened. And having a job was the only way that I knew that I could get off of SSI, because there wasn't all these other options that exist in 2026. But there was one time while I was working, I had already been there at least a year or so in, and the boss at the time had pulled me into her office. And I've told this story so many times, but it's very imperative to share in context with this video. So she pulls me into her office, and at the end of the conversation hints that, Lauren, if you don't get it together, you will be fired. I remember going home that day crying my eyes out, terrified, because this lady, although she felt like she was doing her job, she didn't understand that if she fired me, I would be back on SSI, I would lose all of my benefits, and it wasn't like I was saving a shit ton of money. I was still very much so paycheck to paycheck, but it was a better paycheck than I've ever experienced before, right? So I was just so hurt by it, and I remember speaking to my mom, and I was like, Mom, I need to put myself in a financial position where nobody could take over my livelihood. And when I thought about like what I could do and my skill sets, the first thing that popped in my mind was a YouTube channel. And that's how I got on YouTube. Now, just because I decided to do YouTube did not mean that I quit my job. Absolutely not. In fact, I stayed at that job all through when I started acting and got my first role in Give Me Liberty. I was still working my job. So because of the hype of Give Me Liberty, I was starting to get opportunities to go speak in different places. And that's how I started my speaking career. So I ended up quitting my job in March 2020. And if you guys can remember what happened in March of 2020, mother frickin' COVID. That's right, the entire world shut down 1 week after quitting my job. I was able to qualify for unemployment during COVID. So all of those extra monies was coming in that was able to kind of carry me through being able to get groceries and everything else without needing to get back on SSI. And then I was able to start back auditioning again. I auditioned for the Sex Lives of College Girls, which, as you all know, ended up being something that I booked. I was getting money from brand deals and more speaking engagements and modeling gigs and all these different things that all of it was compounding on top of itself, and I was making a lot of money. But in true fashion, having been on SSI before, I told myself, I can't just be spending this money willy-nilly. I need to save. So I saved as much as I could. Just because I was living a much more abundant lifestyle did not mean that I was spending it like crazy left and right. I was doing the best I could with what I understood about money to begin with, and a big part of that was savings. Because when Sex Lives got canceled, guess what else gets canceled? Your checks. So, luckily, because I had been saving all of that money, I was able to live off of savings for a very long time until the speaking engagements and brand deals really started picking up again for me. And since then, that is how I've been able to afford to stay and keep my lifestyle. The ultimate thing that I want y'all to take from my story is that whether it was SSI, my job, YouTube, acting, whatever it was, I always made sure that I secured something else first before I felt confident and comfortable enough to let the other thing go. I still have to be very strategic and financially sure and secure around all of the decisions that I make in order to feel like I'm still living my life while still being smart doing it, okay? Now, let's get into you and how you can position yourself to do the same thing. One of the best ways to find a way to get off of SSI is understanding what your financial goal is once you get off of it. Once you know the number in your head based on the reality of what it is that you're trying to achieve, then you know what you can feasibly be able to do. So for me, I knew how much money I needed to cover my rent, cover my bills, cover my other expenses that I had at the time. So I knew what kind of job I needed and how much it needed to pay in order for me to make the decision on what I should be applying for, okay? Now, as I was doing research, because again, I haven't been on SSI in many years, I wasn't really sure of like what might actually be out there to help people get off of SSI. You know what I found out about? Have you ever heard about ABLE accounts? I had never heard of it a day in my life until I started researching for this video. Able account is a tax advantage savings and investment account for individuals with disabilities. To open an Able account, the owner or designated beneficiary and their disability onset must have occurred before the age of 46. You have to already be eligible for SSI or SSDI or have a disability certification and signed diagnosis from a licensed physician. Now, money from an Able account can be spent on a wide variety of expenses. That means housing and rent, education and training, transportation, including a vehicle or public transit, medical and dental care, assistive technology and personal support services, and basic living expenses. Now, Able balances generally do not impact SSI. But if the account balance exceeds $100,000, the beneficiary's SSI cash benefits will be suspended until the balance drops below $100,000 again. But here's the key, their Medicaid benefits stay intact. Y'all are going to have to really do your research and know the ins and outs and ins of it. And I read it and I thought it was good enough to be able to at least share, but do your research, okay? Now, an Able account is good for savings and investment, but the real question is, how do you get the money flowing to you to begin with? And there's many ways. Getting a job with good benefits is always first and foremost going to be the best way to get off of SSI, because typically in the job market, there's more security, there's better benefits when you're working for a corporation or whatever the case is. Now, based on whatever your skill sets are, I don't know, but just look for jobs that are in industries where you really want to build a career long term with. So that way, if something happens, you don't have to get back on SSI. And I would also recommend trying to find a job where if you can show up in person, do it to show up in person, because it is a lot to be in the house all the time and be remote all the time. So if you're able to get a job like that, I highly recommend it. And more importantly, a job that is a hybrid, where maybe you're in the office for 3 days, but then you work remote for 2 days. There's a lot of jobs that exist like that now because of COVID. Now, speaking of COVID, because of COVID, remote work has been all the rave and all the craze ever since. And so, looking up good remote jobs. You're at home, so you don't have to worry about transportation or any of those other barriers. You're still gonna get paid a good salary because it's a job at the end of the day, and you're gonna be able to get benefits. But remote work is really great for that. Now, in the same vein of remote work, I would also say freelancing. If you can withstand driving a lot, try driving for Uber and Lyft, Instacart or Postmates, or any of those kinds of jobs that are freelance, that are relatively simple. You can make your own schedule out of it. And again, if you have the energy and the ability to do so, then try those kinds of jobs, right? Then, if you are someone that maybe is a little bit more on the creative side, there's freelance jobs. If you're a graphic designer, an assistant, a video editor, or any of those kinds of things through services like an Upwork or a Fiverr. As someone with a disability who only has so much energy and mental capacity to do certain things, I actually hire an editor through Upwork. So if you know how to edit or anything creative, Upwork and Fiverr are those things where you can get paid some good money. And there's a lot of people who actually do that full time. Now, do those kind of services give benefits? I'm not really sure, so you would have to do your research on that. Then, of course, would I be me if I did not suggest content creation? Now, what I would say about that though, content creation is a long game, okay? It's not easy. It takes a lot of time. However, should you decide to go down that route and become successful at being a content creator, the financial gains from it is really good, because once you make an audience for yourself, you can do the UGC content, you can get the brand deals, you start getting invited to the events, you start getting paid to do other things like speaking and everything else, because that's exactly what happened with me in my career. So I had to be honest about that though, because having been on social media since 2015 when I launched my YouTube channel, to this day, I still have to actively make content on social media 11 years later. Yeah, those are all of my suggestions. I fully understand that not everybody has the same resources or access, and that is a very real reality. The Medicaid situation is very real. SSI income is very real, and the rules around that is very real. But my goal with this video wasn't to add any more pressure. It was simply to give you some information on how I did it, because everyone asked. So I'm not saying get off the SSI immediately right now in this moment. No, I just wanted to give you something to let you know that whenever you do make the decision, if you ever decide to make the decision, that there is a path as to which it can happen. So if anybody else has been able to get off of SSI and make a living for themselves that in a way that I did not mention, please go ahead and leave a comment. If you have more questions around this topic, go ahead and leave a comment. And then if you learn more about what these ABLE accounts are, and if you have one or if you were interested in one and you were trying to figure it all out, then go ahead and leave a comment about that, because I want to learn more even after this, and I'm probably going to do some more research myself. Okay, so I really hope this was helpful. I really hope this information made you feel encouraged to make a different decision for yourself if it was a decision that you've been pondering on for a long time. Okay, and if it was something that you thought you could never do and now you feel like you can, baby, I am glad that this video helped you. Okay, until next time, bye.